ClearStream RFID webinar. We're going to learn how to set up and track anything in minutes with our ClearStream RFID software. I am your presenter, Joe Kraebel. I'm a solutions architect here at PTS, and I'll be doing this presentation today. So a little bit about ClearStream RFID. It's a very powerful tool that enables you to basically track anything RFID, whether that be assets in a room or things going through a portal. Some of the benefits of ClearStream RFID are you don't need to be a programmer to set it up. It's very easy and intuitive to set up, and you can set that up and start reading in minutes, as we'll show you here today. You can actually can connect to multiple fixed RFID readers. So not just one reader, but you can connect to multiple readers with multiple antenna points. So you can actually collect lots of information that way. And this actual collected information will be able to be sent to any ODBC compliant database, such as Microsoft Access, SQL Server, MySQL, Oracle, and usually anything else that's ODBC compliant. You can also stream these tags to Excel workbooks or even text files. What I'm going to be featuring today is our ClearStream RFID 2 software, which was released earlier this year. Some of the new features that are supported, we added new reader support. We support a bunch of different manufacturers now, which I'll go into in the next slide. We added some new scan interval options as far as to how you perform the read. We'll also go into that during the actual demonstration. We increased some of the performance. We made some of the reading perform a lot better. It's a lot faster. You'll be able to read a lot more tags. We also added some tag event options, which is specific to the Motorola readers, and I'll also go into that during our demonstration. So some of the new supported readers in our 2.0 version, we've always supported the Motorola FX7400 and 9500. New to this version is support for Impinge, Alien, ThingMagic, Intermec, and really any reader that supports the LLRP protocol. So we're really excited about that, and it allows us to talk to a bunch of different readers now. With that being said, I'm just going to go back one slide, and we'll just go ahead and get into the presentation, or demonstration, I should say. So I'm going to open up our ClearStream RFID software. And I'm going to go ahead and start a new project. So those of you who are familiar with our software, or have used some of our Tracer Plus products, you'll notice that this looks similar to our Tracer Plus Connect software, which is our data syncing tool for our Tracer Plus mobile client. So you'll notice that that looks a bit similar. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new project and then a new profile. So a profile is basically going to enclose multiple processes. So you can actually add multiple readers to a single profile. You can also separate different readers into different profiles, and that way you can control when and where a read would actually take place. So we have a process here. I'm going to go ahead and name that. We'll call this RFID read. And then you'll notice we have a source and destination option here. So the source is always going to be your RFID. So I'm going to select that from our drop-down here. So this is basically saying we're going to take a fixed RFID reader and then stream that collected data over to the destination of your choice, which can be, like we mentioned earlier, ODBC, Excel, or text. One thing to mention, we also do support database-to-database syncing. So if you wanted to go ODBC to ODBC, you could also do that as well. But for this instance, we're going to go RFID. And then once we select RFID, you'll see that we have a reader type drop-down. So this is going to list all of the manufacturers or the fixed readers that we support. We have the Alien, Impinge, Intermec, Motorola, Thing Magic, and then we also have the generic LLRP, which would also work for most readers. In this instance, I have Motorola here in the office here, so I'm going to go ahead and select Motorola. Once we select Motorola, our next option here is name. So you can actually give this reader a name. This is important basically for where the reader is located. So if you had multiple rooms with multiple readers, you can actually name this so that you know which reader actually read the tags that are coming through. We'll go ahead and name that after we find our reader, which is in our next field here. You'll see we have an IP host name. So this is where you can enter the IP address or the host name of the reader that you're going to connect to. If you don't know this, we do have a little search icon here where it'll search out any fixed reader it finds on your network. So you'll see we have a few different domains we can choose from. So I'm going to leave it on this one, and then if I hit start, it's going to go ahead and start searching out our network for any fixed reader that it finds. Once it does find some of these readers, it'll start displaying the results below, and then we can actually expand on some of those readers to see the model number, a MAC address, the host name, and so on. This can take a little long because it's actually searching through all available IP addresses for that domain selected. So we should come across one pretty shortly here. Okay, so there's our first reader. It found it actually by host name. So if I actually expand this, we can see its IP address of 4.125. Its listening port, the reader model, 74004. I know this is a Motorola FX7400. It'll also give us the MAC address of the reader. Okay, we've also found another reader. This one is an FX9500. So I'm going to go ahead and select our FX7400, and I'm going to press the select button. So once I do that, it'll populate in this IP host name as well as give us the reader ID. So now that we know this is the Moto FX7400, I'll go ahead and name it. So we'll call this FX7400. And then the next thing we'll want to do is define our destination. So I'm going to go to an ODBC database. Just to show you real quick, I'm going to go to our ClearStream sample that we actually include with the software. This is just a sample access database that you can use if you wanted to. Otherwise, you can tie into your own backend system. But I'm going to tie into this RFID tags table, so I'm just going to clear this out before we get started. And then I'm going to go ahead to our ODBC section and select our data source. So these are going to list all of your available Windows data sources. So I'm going to go with our ClearStream RFID sample. And I'm going to select our RFID tag list as our table. So once we do that, you'll notice that some mappings take place in the lower section of the software. This is actually all of the data that's available to capture with the fixed reader. So you'll see we can capture the tag, the antenna that was that the tag was read by, the peak RSSI, the date time of the read, the reader name, which we named up here, that was that FX7400, and then also tag event, which is new to version 2. Currently, Motorola readers are the only ones that support the tag event, but I'll go over that a little bit later. So I'm just going to make these mappings line up. So there, that was easy to map. All of our mappings, tag goes to tag ID, antenna name, and so forth. So we have some options here for the destination of how we actually want to post this data to that database. We can append the data, so what that'll do is it'll just keep adding as reads are done. So you'll get duplicates in this case. You would probably use this if you just want to capture, all tags that are just need to be read. maybe passing through a portal or of some sort. We have an overwrite function, an update existing, and an update existing append if not found. So those would be used if you wanted to basically keep track of when the tag was last read. So if you used an update existing, you read a tag at 8 a.m., that posts to the database, then say it gets read again at 1 p.m., that tag row or record will now be updated with a date time of 1 p.m. We're just going to do append for right now just to show you how much tags and how fast all this can read. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And I'll just write over my sample project here. So once I do that, we have a start-stop screen. So this is where you can actually start the reading process. And then we also have a data viewer. So this will give us a view of the data that's actually being posted to our database. So if I were to come back over here, click Start, you'll see that our reader is going to start reading tags. You'll see that in the activity below. Now if I hit Stop, come over to the data viewer, and refresh, you'll see that we read 102 tags in that small time frame. These can be duplicates because we do have lots of tags around the office here. So now I'm going to go ahead and configure some additional advanced options. So if we come back to Configure and we go to Advanced, we can actually set the scan mode. There are some new features in here for the 2.0 version. We added the daily option to the timed scan mode. So now you can set a reader to start and stop at a certain time and then also run certain days of the week. So if you just wanted to run the reader between 10 and 5, on weekdays, you can do that now. Our continuous mode is what we were originally set to. That's what it'll just, as soon as you start that process that I just did, it's just going to continuously read until you were to hit that stop button. Once again, back to the timed, we do have an interval. So if you wanted it to run every 1 hour for 15 seconds, that's where you would set it here. The other option is a Gpi Trigger. So we can actually trigger the read to start using the reader's built-in general purpose input ports. So you could tie something like a motion or light sensor, or even maybe some sort of button press that can actually trigger that read to start happening. We're going to leave it in continuous mode. Excuse me. Our next option is antennas. You can actually, if we go back to the data for a moment, you'll see that we have an antenna name of 1. So if you don't name your antennas, you're just going to get its default port that it's connected to. Most readers have 4 ports, so these will be labeled 1 through 4 usually. So we can actually name this so that it makes more sense. So if we come back over here and we go to add an antenna, we can actually name this antenna. So if you had a reader that had antennas touching different rooms, you could actually specify that here. So let's say antenna 1 was in room 101. One thing you can also do is specify the power of the antenna. Right now it's on 30, which is at max power. But if you wanted to adjust the sensitivity so you're not reading so far or possibly reading through rooms, you can actually drop that power level down. I'm going to leave it at 30. I only have 1 antenna connected to this, but if we had a second antenna, we could add a second one. You could say maybe this was in room 102, and we can also adjust that power level independently of the other one. If we jump over to our Gpio, this is an area where you can trigger general purpose output ports of the reader. Most readers usually have these built in. So based on certain read characteristics or events, you can actually trigger these ports to turn off or on. So you can actually hook up a light sensor or actually I should say a light bar, or maybe some sort of siren or alarm, that if a certain tag's read, that it can flash the light or send an alarm, similar to if you try to walk out of a store, without paying for something. Lastly, we have a device tab here, and this is where this tag event comes into play. Once again, this is only supported on the Motorola readers currently. So you can actually track different tag events. So if a tag is first read, that event can be posted to the database. Currently, there's a default of new tag visible. You can actually customize these messages. Maybe it would be new item. You can also track when an item is no longer visible. So if a tag happens to go out of range, you can track that event and post it to your database. So if an item gets removed off the shelf, you would know based on this event. If that item were to come back into visibility again, you can also track that event as well. So that'll be a tag visible again. So I'm going to hit OK to this. And if I do another read, and I'll go ahead and stop. So if we come down, we'll refresh this. Got another 47. So now you'll see our antenna name now says Room 101, based on that name that we gave that antenna. So this will make your stream data make a lot more sense as to where it was physically read. You'll also see some of these tag events here being posted, tag visible, new tag visible again. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and add another reader to our profile. Once again, we select RFID. I'm going to select Motorola. And I know this IP address, so I'm just going to type it in instead of having to wait for it. So once it finds the reader ID will populate. So we'll name this one FX9500. We'll go ahead and add an antenna to it. We'll call this one shipping room. And then we'll set its destination. We're going to go to that same table. So that's our ClearStream RFID sample, our RFID tag list, and we'll just adjust our mappings accordingly. Once again, we'll stick with the append option. I'll go ahead and save this, and I'll go ahead and hit the start. So now you'll see we actually have two readers streaming data, as you can see below. And we'll look at our record count. We're up to 296, 328, 343. So you'll see how quickly it can read all these tags. So I'm going to hit stop, go back and refresh. Now if we look at some of this data, you'll see that we have, now we're showing in shipping room or room 101. So we know specifically where this tag was read. And if we look at our actual database, our view RFID tags, you'll see that the actual data is in here as well. So that is basically what I wanted to cover today. Just basically a way to show you how quickly you can bring fixed RFID into your processes and how easy it is to set up and how quickly and accurately you can track your RFID-enabled assets. If I bring up our presentation again, I just do want to mention that we do have RFID kits available. These are full bundled systems that include the reader, cables, antennas, as well as brackets, along with the ClearStream RFID software and service. So if you need more info on that, feel free to contact your reseller, and they'll be able to get you more info as well as pricing on those kits.